So thank you, Dale, for being our speaker today. Dale is the owner and CEO of Home Team Inspection Service of West Denver. Dale has been the owner and primary inspector of Home Team West Denver since 2019. He has personally built several homes and has been involved in home maintenance, repair, flipping industries for over 10 years. He has a vast knowledge with all of this experience of homes and commercial buildings. Dale can understand and communicate issues about these buildings and his clients in a non-alarming way. I love the way you present these things to people, helping them really gain a comfortable understanding of their building or the building they are about to purchase. Outside of work, Dale owns a competitive swim team with his wife, Karen. He also enjoys golf, skiing, hunting, swimming, snorkeling, scuba diving. Holy cow. That's a lot. And being with his family. He has 4 children and 4 grandchildren, and of course, enjoys spending lots of time with them. Take it away, Dan.
Well, thank you, Tracy. Appreciate that introduction. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a review. We talk about things that you would see in homes and the 10 most common defects. And I will tell you right up front, one of the most common things that we help people understand in homes that can be a big detriment to most any home is water. Water is an issue that you never know what it does to your home in all kinds of different ways. And we'll talk through some of that and show you some pictures of that. But we also really help people understand things that are going to be big defects, something that may cost you $1,000 or more to fix, and then also things that might be safety issues. So there are things that we'll call out over time that are safety things that usually tend to be in the categories like electrical. It can be structural issues in the home. It can be even things as simple as tripping hazards or fire hazards in your home that if left unmaintained, then we can have a problem. So today we're going to talk about the 10 most common defects. I'll show you some crazy pictures. I'll tell you about some things that we've experienced in our world. Some of these are from other people, but I'll share with you what we see. The number one most common defect is things that have to do with water and foundations. Mike talks about this all the time. You want to have all of your foundations exposed. You want to have wood on your house or other cladding around your house off the turf. You don't want your wood to be landscaped in so that you're bringing water from your landscaping into your home, the boards on the side of your home. Otherwise, you start to see wood rot. You start to see other things that are just going to penetrate into the home. Gutter downspouts, move them 6 feet or more away from the house using downspout extensions. It's a great way to protect your foundation and any water that gets in. And then making sure that you don't have any water penetration from someplace that you wouldn't normally think about. You know, where is that water coming from? So we talk about that a lot. These are the most common things you might see in foundation issues. Moisture, walls buckling or leaning. You know, we'll see that from osmotic pressure from outside the house. Windows or doors that don't close correctly are usually an indication that something's moving in the house. Crumbling or chipping concrete, cracks, fissures, ruptures. And the one that Mike and I collaborated on most recently, and we have a client that we're just about to go do their inspection this next month, is honeycombing in concrete. And honeycombing is an interesting issue. It's what happens is you have the guys pouring the concrete don't completely get the bubbles and everything out of the concrete. You end up with honeycombing. And for the most part, that's not a gigantic issue unless water can make its way through the honeycomb. If it can make its way through the concrete, now you have water that's penetrating what could be a 6 to 10 inch concrete wall, right? So we have to worry about that. Here's examples of what happens to foundations when they start to move. This is a concrete block or CMU foundation. Look at, you have a stair-stepping crack that popped up in there. Here's an example of mold that's come up through the foundation. So somewhere probably external of this, we have water getting into this area inside the home, and it sits there, and then mold starts to build up, and you have all kinds of other issues that go with that. This is a little hard to see, but if you look in the center of the picture, there's kind of a crack that goes from the top left to the bottom right. That's another example of something's moving outside the home, and the question is what? And we have to analyze the area around and try to give a best idea of what we think might be happening that would be causing that kind of pressure in on the foundation, right? Here's a real fun one. Looked like the crack behind Mike's head in the picture. This is, again, another version of a stair-stepping crack in the brick mortar outside a home. The question becomes, what's happened here? Did the ground move? Did you have a lintel that's holding up this space on the bottom of the foundation give way? A number of different things could happen in this, but basically you're about to have the corner of your exterior cladding, brick cladding, fall off the house. So you got to be really careful with that. Another version of that kind of same picture where we start to see separation. This is usually caused by the foundation moving or the slab moving, whatever it might be on this house. And you end up with problems that you got to figure out how to fix it. And usually this requires engineers coming in, structural people coming in like Mike's team, and trying to figure out how do we make this better, right? And it's not an inexpensive fix, to Mike's point, right? Other defects, number 2 defect that we run into is electrical. Some are very common and easy to fix. Others a little more complicated, and we can talk. Well, I'll show you pictures of some that are a little more complicated to fix. All right, but getting electrical right is really important in the house. Not letting these things percolate for a while, because dangerous things can happen if the electrical is not done right. Right. So first of all, I'll just tell you right up front, this happens more times than we can count. You're supposed to leave, it's code to leave at least 3 feet around your electrical panel, and not have things in front of it. I run into people's electrical panels all the time where there's a shelf built in front of it, or things are stored in front of it. It's really important to have it accessible. You want to be able to get at those, especially in case of needing to do something quickly, like shutting off the power to your house, right? This is an example of kind of old world work. They basically have taken 2 different parts of the electrical system and merged them into one. The copper that you see there versus the white wires, the copper is ground wiring in a house. The white wires are your neutral wires in the house. They shouldn't be wired into the same bus bar, which is what this big line of screws is here. They're in today's modern boxes, they're all separate. You have a neutral bus bar and you have a grounding bus bar, and your whole system is grounded so that you don't have problems if you were to have an electrical strike, or excuse me, a lightning strike, something along that line. So this is something that needs to be fixed, or in most cases, old school electricians would say you can get away with it, but it's very old technology in today's world. And we would call it out and tell people it's something you might want to consult an electrician on, right? This is another thing, double tapping. So if you see on the bottom left 2 breakers here, you see a white wire and a black wire, or 2 white wires connected to the same breaker, that's a no-no. You should not have wires that are doubled up in one breaker. Otherwise, you're causing yourself all kinds of problems. So we would call that out as well, and have an electrician come back and do something that separates those out the way you want them. Here's an example of a really bad situation. That main big black box on top is one of your main shutoff breakers, right? And you've got that double tapped and even triple tapped with all their wires put in there. This was probably a DIY scenario where they were wiring in additional panels somewhere else, but that's a big time no-no, right? One breaker, one set of wires going to one place, and the wires have to be of the right size to make sure they work. Here's a couple other good examples. So the picture on the left, you see 2 different sets of breakers, and you see the smaller wires. Those are likely for the breaker that's there, the right size wires. The ones below that are wired in, and those are gigantic wires, guys. And even they're partially using one to run into a breaker. That's a huge no-no, right? There's no way that would pass any kind of code. So it's something we would definitely call out and make sure that gets done right. And then the pile on the right is like one of your worst junction boxes you could ever see. You have all kinds of wires coming into one point and then feeding to other places. This is a giant no-no as well. You can create junction boxes with a number of wires in it like that, but it's got to be much bigger and it's got to be covered, right? So you got to be able to house what's there. Otherwise, you create electrical hazards in your home. Here's a couple of little critters that grab hold of the wrong things at the wrong time. It's not unusual for us to see. The picture on the left is a 220 outlet. This poor little mouse or squirrel or whatever it turns out to be grab hold of two screws that created its worst nightmare, which is basically electrocuted it. And the one on the right is what looks like a frog that, or something like that, that jumped onto the service mast. The service mast is where the electricity comes into your house from outside. In this case, it's an overhead, comes in from a pole out somewhere in your yard or outside your yard. And again, they grab hold of a piece that basically froze them in place. So those are all things that we keep an eye on. We look out for. Animals love wires. It's crazy. We'll see things chewed on a regular basis, and it's kind of bizarre that you got to keep an eye on them, right? Let's talk about the number 3 thing, roofing problems. It's not unusual to see challenges with roofs. That's why we have guys like Miles who can take care of a lot of this. You look at, here's a cedar shake roof that's got a lot of wear on it, and also drainage issues as this you're draining a top roof down to a lower level roof and running it down to your gutters. You get all kinds of wear and tear by just that over time. Here's a big leak on the left. You can see we pulled back a ridge, and you can see where there's all kinds of water that's leaked in through underneath the decking on the roof. On the right, you can also see what looks like a little valley that created down before you get to the gutters. Something's not working right there as it relates to how the roof's constructed. And you would call in somebody like Miles to really come and do a consultation or evaluation of what's going on in that particular example. Here's another example of roof deck rotting. On the left, you see where water has penetrated in here and created all kinds of wood problems. The same on the right. Those are areas that need to be addressed quickly, because water goes in places you don't necessarily know where it's going to end up. And if this has already started here, you need to find out whether it's an ongoing issue or whether it's something that, in this case, needs to be treated and taken care of and then watched on a regular basis. Number 4 thing, we check heating systems. We look at your heating systems from top to bottom, make sure that you have enough combustion air going into the heating system area, because if you don't, then it won't operate efficiently and you end up creating potential backflows, which is not good. You should have venting into your heating area spaces, both high and low, to make sure that you get proper venting so that your heating systems work efficiently. Okay. Whoop. Back up real quick. So this is an example of what I'm talking about. Here's a closet. There's a lot of homes and condos and things that have closets in them. This has a vent in the door. That one vent in the door is not enough to make your system run properly. There should be some exterior air vents in and around your furnace. So if you're looking in your house and you don't see a vent that's high or a vent that's low somewhere around your furnace, then you might want to ask the question, do I have enough ventilation in there so that this operates properly? Okay. This is an example of a bad heating element over time. This is in a boiler. These just go bad over time and they need to be taken care of. And so a lot of what this is dirt and dust and everything that's sucked in when you don't have good combustion in the room. This is another example. This is actually a high flow, high efficiency furnace, but if you see the hole on the left side, it should be connected to a white pipe like the one on the right, and it's not. So you're not getting yourself good efficiency. Those pipes could go directly to the outside. One draws in, the other one exits air out, and you can't get your furnace, even the high efficiency ones, to run right if it's not hooked up right. Maintenance and repair. We talk about maintenance and repair items. This is a good example of a water heater that somebody took a copper pipe and fitted it to fit their needs. Just good maintenance would make a difference on this. And this is an example of things we see every so often that people try to fix, but it's not a good thing. This is a weird picture, I know, but it's a good example of what are people doing? Why would you tap in like this? Okay. I brought this up because next time I'm going to show you a picture of somebody who put a wash tub, a fiberglass wash tub in a basement, and they connected the drain by taking off the opening, the access opening to a main stack. So you no longer can get into your sewer lines to check your sewer lines in the house other than to pull a toilet, but they turned it into a drain. It's a big no-no, guys. I mean, there's better ways to do it. This is an example of that same kind of thing. You got all kinds of things jury-rigged to this sewer line that it shouldn't be, right? Here's an example of somebody put in a disposal, and the wires in a disposal wire right into the chassis of this disposal on the bottom. Well, this is one where they just threw a wire over the top and wire nutted it together. Again, an electrical no-no. We would call that out for everybody. Here's a really weird one. Somebody tried to vent their dryer through their water heater, thinking that if it runs up through the water heater, it'll go out the water heater vent. Oh, giant no-no, guys. On top of the fact that you're pumping potentially lint into your water heater right where the ignition is. So you'll have all kinds of problems with that, right? Structural damage. Here's an example of structural damage. Somebody's cut through a main beam in the basement just to put some ductwork in. That's a giant no-no, because all of a sudden you've compromised the floor structure of the floor above, and you're going to end up with problems over time because they're not designed to carry that load anymore that they originally were installed to do. Here's another example. Somebody got really excited and their garage opener didn't fit in right. So they cut a hole in their steel I-beam, compromising the I-beam just so they could extend their garage door opener in. There's other ways to fix that. They have side mount garage door openers now that work super efficiently, and you can do that. Mike, here's your crack. Here's a good one for, something's going wrong on this, and basically this is going to need a ton of work. That corner of the house is basically leaning to the right, and it's moved and separated. So there's a lot happening here that guys like Mike would have a good time trying to figure out how to fix and bring back together. Plumbing problems. Not unusual to have plumbing issues that we find along the way. The one on the left, you see that white circular thing in the middle. They basically took the top off of a mustard bottle to cover up a hose opening, which is completely crazy. Why you would do that, I don't have no idea. Or to use a aluminum beer can because you lost the cover to your ignition area on your water heater. It's Coors, Colorado, but not really a good idea. This is goofy. You don't like your bidet, but you use it as a cooler for your local parties. You'd be better off just taking the bidet out of the house. Water and air infiltration. These are common things we look for as it relates to rot. Here's an example of a complete pipe break. We've seen several of these over time, both in water and sewer lines. We literally walked into a multifamily unit, went into the crawl space, and there was a lake underneath their crawl space on one unit side of the building. And you look to the left, and where there's connected, the sewer line's connected before it leaves the house. It's literally actively leaking into that big lake in the crawl space. So something to keep an eye on. This is an example of infrared technology that we use. On the left, you see the ceiling looks just fine, right? Doesn't look like there's anything of a problem. But with infrared technology, what we can see, that darker color is a colder spot in the same space. But that colder spot has got to be indicative of something happening. It's one thing to see where things thermal bridge into the house, like your rafters and your wall joists and everything thermal bridges in from outside. This is an example of a puddle. So whatever's above that or somewhere around that is leaking into that space. It's a cold, wet spot up there, and if we were to open that up, I bet it would drain. So we find those things using infrared technology commonly. Mold, here's some black mold that's gotten into somebody's house, could be along a ceiling line that, you haven't been, it's slowly got water behind it. And before you know it, next thing you've got is mold in the house. Here's another example of mold. I did a house 2 weeks ago, beautiful home. Everything was great. There was one spot in the back of the house where the patio had sunken, but when I went into the crawl space just to kind of check things out, I saw what they call efflorescence, which is like it's a deposit that comes through out of the concrete as water kind of sits on the backside of that concrete. And it was going straight down the wall, and it just struck me as odd. So I crawled in to that area, and what I found is something that looks like what you see in that picture on the left. Right underneath the bathroom, right above it, and ultimately you had mold kind of sitting in that space, right? And it wasn't actively leaking at the time, but at some point in there, they had a problem. So we let the clients know and let them figure with their agents, what's the next step to figure this out? Do we actively have to do something? Do we ask about, is this something that happened in the past? Where are we on this, and how do we get it treated and fixed? Again, here's other examples of leaking around either a sink, most likely a sink, but it could be a tub somewhere above this. It also shows some compromised structural there above the pipes. That should be all one floor joist going through there, and they cut it to put this pipe in. Crawl space and attic ventilation are probably the last thing we get into a lot. One of the last things we do before we leave the house is get into the crawl spaces, get into the attics, and we're actively looking for things structurally that are a problem, along with water. Do we see any kind of history in older homes of water? And then more importantly, is it still wet? Is it active, or is it something that happened in the past? And we want to alert the owners to it so that if something comes up, they at least know that there was something there. We also look at that both inside and outside. So looking at the roof decking and the roofing itself, where is it in its life cycle, and how does this impact any of this? And then other things, if you look on the left, things that are connected, like solariums or additions to the house. What kinds of things do they have that could be causing active leaking in a home, and where do we go with that? Here's an example of getting into a crawl space. Some of these are so much fun to get into. You get all kinds of crazy critters. Here's an attic fan from a bathroom that's supposed to be vented out of the attic space. It's vented right above the attic space. So think about, if you're in a bathroom, not only smells, but more importantly, water vapor that gets vented into your attic. You're causing your own problems with potential mold and water problems if it's not properly vented. So we help people see that. This is an example of what happens in an attic where a bath fan like that is not properly vented. All of a sudden you have the whole underside of the roof decking with mold on it. Critters are a big problem in crawl spaces. This is a vented crawl space, and you got a friend sitting there. Luckily, I've never run into a snake in a crawl space, but I know a lot of colleagues that do. We even have some colleagues that have crawlers, like drone crawlers, to go in there to keep themselves from getting caught up with, all of these fun animals that exist down there. All right. Some kind of non-inspected defects. This is a wire break. This is even before anything's even happened in the house, and they've already created an electrical problem before it started. This is a structural problem where they put a main beam into a space where there's no support for the main beam, and then tried to support it with basically a 2x12. All right. That's a big no-no. All right. So we would let people know about that. Here's a support. Mike sees these probably all the time, where, the other trades come in and they decide they didn't like the fact that there was a main support beam there. Well, let's just cut through the edge of it so that we can put our pipes in, but now all of a sudden you compromise the problems in the home, right? The other thing we have, GFCI, AFCIs, those outlets that have buttons in them in your bathrooms and in your kitchen, those are requirements, guys. They protect you from that hair dryer on the right dropping into the sink and causing you to get electrocuted. You need to have them. They need to be working actively, and we help people understand that as well. And lastly, in this area, these are old technologies. If you see you have this kind of technology in your home, it's worth having an electrician evaluate it. Some of these old technologies, these are breaker boxes from back in the 1950s and 60s. They can be a big problem and cause all kinds of safety issues in your home, and should be rerouted and done new things with if you can do it. And that's the top 10 defects. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out.
Great. That
Well
was
done.
wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was cool.
It was.
Yeah, Dale just does a great job.
Hey Tracy,
across
can
the
you
board.
can you
So is all my clients who utilize him really appreciate what he does.
I wish he was here.
He does a great job.
All I
Thank-
could see is all of us looking at those photos and shaking our heads.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
unbelievable.
Dale, I told you not to use the one of my water heater with the Coors Light. Why did you do that?
You know,
Yeah, I told
I
you
thought
I
that
was
was
being
pretty
creative.
ingenious. I mean, I don't know if is that a double wall Coors Banquet can, or
Yeah.
is that single wall?
Yeah, I think they doubled it up.
Well, that's good then.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Yeah. So yeah, there's crazy things you see all the time. And it's sometimes like our reporting system is set up such that we have most all of these defects in our system, so we can pull them into reports and talk about them and customize it for the client. I'm telling you, there isn't a week that goes by that I don't find something different.
Dale, I think you need to put together like a coffee table book
Yeah.
of here's your no-nos.
Yeah, it's amazing. Peter, I have thousands of pictures, thousands. Okay.
I can only imagine.
Every one of these reports, I have all the pictures from all the reports, but they're stored in the cloud, right? So, but I mean, I pull some out, Mike and I talk on a regular basis, and we'll pull out different crazy things that happen in basements and foundations, and just store them in place to say, all right, here's some of those things that come up, and it's nutty sometimes.
It's the book of shame.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that, we would like for you guys to join us at our weekly presentations with BNI Rocky Mountain Elite. You can go to www.bnirme.com and make sure that you schedule one-to-one with Dale. Talk to you soon.